that the youth mobility scheme is just a way of getting more young Eastern European male prostitutes into the country, because for some reason Keir Starmer seems to have a soft spot for young male Eastern European prostitutes. Well, we mentioned the word Brexit before we get into Starmer's reset with the European Union. Let me tell you my thoughts on Brexit. Obviously, I voted for Brexit. I've been a Brexiteer since I was an early teenager, before the word Brexit was even created. We're talking about the early 80s here. Brexit hasn't been a success, but that's not because Brexit was a bad idea. Brexit was the opportunities to be able to run this country ourselves. And up to now, since we've had Brexit, we've not had a prime minister who's actually wanted those opportunities. But a prime minister will come along at some point. He'll take Brexit off the shelf, he'll run with it, and this country will do amazingly well if we ever get that sort of prime minister. What do you think of my assessment there?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Nick. You have these people who come on and say things like, well, Brexit failed. I say to them, Brexit is not a set of policies. Brexit was just leaving the European Union. And of course, we did that, and we had governments who were incompetent and who didn't take the opportunity to do all the things that they could have done. But of course, that doesn't mean that there will never be a government who can take the opportunity by the horns and really make a success of it. And I think that's what you're saying, isn't it?
That I don't think who actually believed in Brexit. Even Boris Johnson, he was just a fly by night, I'll tell you whatever you want to hear sort of prime minister. Probably the worst prime minister in my lifetime, because he could have done so much. But Brexit is back in the news this last few days because of our Prime Minister Keir Starmer has told us all he's doing a reset with the European Union. People like me going, oh, I don't like the sound of this. He's trying to drag us back in. Other people are saying he's correcting some of the mistakes that Boris Johnson made. He wants us to do better deals with Europe, trade more with Europe. I'm happy with more trade. I'm happy. I like Europeans. I like Europe. There are cousins over there.
Yeah.
What is happening with this Keir Starmer Brexit reset?
It's just rejoining the EU again, isn't it? It's betraying what people voted for. We had a democratic vote, and the minute Labour get into power, they're trying to reverse it all. I just think it's absolutely disgusting. He sold out our fishing industry. He sold out our fishermen. Am I allowed to say fishermen? I have to say fisher them, don't I now? I think. Yeah, it's just crazy. And then this youth mobility scheme, I think, is the cherry on top of the cake. It is just free movement. He has got us back into free movement with the EU. 18 to 35-year-olds are going to be allowed to come over here. I think they have said today that there's going to be a cap of 100,000 or something. But can you believe that will last? I don't.
We don't know who comes in the country now.
Yeah.
And it's easy to, it's easy to change their policy anytime they want.
Yeah.
I've come to the conclusion over yesterday that the youth mobility scheme is just a way of getting more young Eastern European male prostitutes into the country, because for some reason Keir Starmer seems to have a soft spot for young male Eastern European prostitutes.
I would like to say, I'll let you say that one.
Right, well, we'll leave that conversation there, because at this moment in time, none of us can be sued for what we just said, but we'll leave that one there. The youth mobility. So we have nearly 10 million people in this country who are not employed, who do not work. They're not all claiming unemployment benefit. There's lots of reasons why people aren't working, but there's 3 million or some getting close to 3 million unemployed on the register, but nearly 10 million not working. Do we need to be importing anybody else in this country to take jobs, or should we be forcing people off benefits and helping people who are not working take those jobs that are available?
Absolutely. And Starmer and his cronies are trying to sort of say, well, this scheme is going to be kind of like students coming over for a few months and learning some English. Of course, we all know that's not going to be the case. These are young working age people. And the other thing is, of course, these are young people who could start a family of their own over here, start having children who would then be British citizens. So it begs the question: how do you then start removing all these potentially 85 million people would have the opportunity to come over here? These young people. How do you start removing these people when they've got a house, they've got a family with potentially British children, and it's just opened the door for a huge can of worms. And bearing in mind, Nick, immigration is already completely out of control in this country.
The mindset now that I want zero immigration. I don't think we should be taking the world's best brain surgeon moving here. I don't think we should be taking anybody moving to this country now for at least the next decade or two until we've sorted out the mess of the last 50 years. So I don't want young Europeans moving here. I don't want brain surgeons. I don't want Elon Musk migrating and moving to the UK because he's a foreigner as well. This has got nothing to do with colour, nothing to do with religion. This is all to do with mass migration. We're full. We're crumbling away. Our services can't cope. We're now an island of strangers, according to Keir Starmer, which I completely agree with. And until we sort out the people living here, and we're not going to deport everybody, that's pie, in the sky. But we can deport all the illegals. We can deport people who've come here the last 1 or 2 decades and haven't assimilated, haven't married into the British way of life. We need to deport millions, and then we need to work on cohesion in this country and making us all feel we belong on this island and some sort of umbrella that we all can stand under, and we all belong. And what that thing is, I don't know. Is it the whole family? Is it? Well, I don't know what it is. It takes people cleverer than me to work out what that is. But mass immigration from young people from Europe can't be on the cards. And whoever takes over from Starmer, Tories, Reform, surely they're going to cancel that.
As you say, it's not just about jobs; it's also about culture. And I think lots of people feel that their communities are losing their culture, and it's something that we never asked for, we never voted for. And of course, with Brexit, we all collectively screamed that we wanted it to stop. And since then, we have seen no end of it. Both illegal and legal migration have increased.
But this has been going on all my life. I grew up in South Manchester on a council estate, and I watched that purely white council estate over decades, which is now a predominantly Asian council estate. And it's like, how did we allow this to happen? How did we allow our country to change so much? And there's absolutely nothing wrong in the Muslim community being Asian, being black, being Chinese, being American or South American. They're all wonderful people, but they have their own countries. This is the only country I've got to. If England fails, where do I go? Where do I run to?
As far as I'm concerned, there should only be one community, and that's a British community. And what we're seeing, I think, in big cities like London and like Manchester, are kind of these little collections of different communities, and it's almost like a segregated sort of society where there is no integration and no desire for integration, and you can sort of cross almost these invisible lines into these separate communities, and it's just nuts, isn't it?
Welcome back to Wednesdays with me, Nick Buckley, and my amazing guest, Joe Marnie. And we're discussing Keir Starmer's Brexit reset. And just before the break, we were talking about the ghettoisation of many of our cities in the UK. They've become balkanized, which means it might be one city, but certain areas in those cities will be inhabited by predominantly one set of people from a different part of the world, and they bring their culture, their traditions from, let's say, Pakistan or Mali or Nigeria to a specific place, and it's like going to that country. Now, I fear for those areas because there's a sense of violence coming to the UK. You can sense it in the air. The people have had enough. And I don't want violence, but our politicians need to do a lot better if we're not going to start seeing violence along ethnic lines, religious lines. We saw what happened when that Rwandan nutcase, the Welsh choir boy, murdered those 3 girls. We had violence on the streets. There's going to be more of that when every atrocity happens now in the UK. It's scary times.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, the other thing is that we're not controlling illegal migration. And there are thousands and thousands of these people who we don't know who they are. We don't know what they're capable of or where they've come from. If they're terrorists, if they're rapists, they're coming over in their thousands in these small boats. And there seems to be no stopping it. Of course, what a lot of the pro-Europe people are saying is that, well, illegal immigration has gone right up since we left the European Union. And that means we need to be back in the European Union in order to control it. But of course, what they're not saying is that it's also increased throughout the European Union itself. These people are coming through Europe to get to Britain and through France. So the European Union is not controlling illegal immigration, and it won't control illegal immigration for us either. It's something that we've got to do ourselves, and our government has got to put its finger out and do it. But so far, it isn't.
And we need to stop giving money to France.
Yeah.
That is the biggest con at the moment. I don't blame the French. The French are taking hundreds of millions of our money and then sending us the worst of their migrants across the channel. Good for France, good for their politicians. That's what politicians in France should be doing, abusing the British and sending us their problems. Well done, France. I'm glad your politicians are looking after their own populace. We need our politicians doing that. Stop giving French money and spend the money ourselves by patrolling the borders in the channel. But our politicians will never do that. That takes a backbone. That takes having some grit and determination. And when you're talking about Europe are getting more immigrants, of course they are. Billions of people in the southern hemisphere all want to come to the West. There's billions of them. And over the last decades, many of their families have come over. They're sending back money. They're telling about how good it is in this country. And even though England and the UK is failing at the moment, it's failing compared to how we used to be. But compared to all these countries, we're still an amazing country. They've all got phones now. They're all seeing on their phones all the opportunities in the UK. Come here illegally. We'll put you up in a 4-star hotel. We'll give you 40 quid a week money. The charities will give you free phones, free bicycles, free driving lessons, free PlayStations. They'll find you a job or get a job illegally while you're staying in the hotel. And it's like, this looks like pure heaven to billions of people who live in the southern hemisphere.
Since leaving the European Union, we've removed a lot of the red tape that Brussels put in place to say that we couldn't remove these people. For example, the Dublin Agreement, the Dublin Regulation, said that we had to send them back to the first country in which they entered the EU. So usually Greece, but it's really impossible to tell because they wouldn't tell you, and there's no documentation or anything. So that prevented us from sending them anywhere. Well, we've removed a lot of that now, but of course the trouble is that we're still in the European Court of Human Rights, which again is Brussels red tape at its finest.
That's the big blockage. Big blockage for many of our issues is the European Court of Human Rights. And other countries get around it by ignoring it, by having stronger judges who are not politically motivated, who are not social justice warriors. But in the UK, we don't have that. A lot of our judges now are politically motivated. Look at the lady who appealed her court sentence yesterday, Lucy Connolly. Absolutely disgraceful. Now, before we go, we need to give our audience something positive about Brexit. You was in UKIP. We all owe UKIP a huge thank you, because if it wasn't for decades of campaigning by UKIP, we never would have got the referendum, and that never would have led to us leaving. Can you name any benefits we've got at the moment through leaving the European Union? There must be one.
Yeah, there is one. There is a fairly huge one, and that is that we've taken back control of our laws and our government, and we are now able to hold our government solely to account for what they do and indeed what they don't do. So to me, that is a huge benefit and something that will carry us into the future. And it means that our government, perhaps in the future, perhaps a future government, maybe even a reform government, will be able to take advantage of what we've achieved so far, which is leaving the European Union and regaining control of our laws and our government.
Yeah, I mean, I'm older than you. I remember decades of politicians on TV always saying, we'd like to do these things, but Europe won't let us. We would like to lower prices on this, but Europe won't let us. We'd like to tax you less. Europe won't let us. We'd like to do a trade deal with such a country and make our food cheaper, but we can't. Europe won't let us. It was always the go-to excuse for weak, pathetic politicians who didn't have the intelligence, the guts, the determination to do their job and improve the UK. It was a go-to excuse all the time. They don't have that now anymore, did they? So now we can hold them accountable and say, you're failing as a government, you're failing as an MP, you're failing as a minister, and we're going to vote you out because the buck stops with you now. It can't stop anywhere else. It's you, the elected official.
Yes, and we've removed that middleman now. So hopefully into the future we can really take advantage of that, Nick, and perhaps we'll have a prime minister at some point who will take the lead, really take the bull by the horns, and sort things out for this country because someone needs to, don't they?
Hmm. I mean, we're crying out for a leader.
Yeah.
We've been crying out for a leader now for decades. I don't know who that leader is going to be. It could be Nigel Farage. It could be a politician we've never heard of yet. It could be Robert Jenrick, who's beginning to impress me. I'm at the general election, I didn't believe him at all. I thought he was 100% liar. I only disbelieve him now 99%. So he's slowly winning me over. It's going to take a while. But, we need a leader. We need a new Thatcher, someone who comes along, who's honest and says, we're going to go through a few years of pain here. But once we get past that, we're going to change the country and we're going to change it so much. So it's so much better, ready for this new millennia, and we haven't got that. Before I let you go, Joe, we need to talk about the fishermen.
To the
I, yeah, the fishermen and fisherwomen and the fisher them. Yeah, yeah. So I've covered all three now. Brexit, a big part of Brexit was about our fishermen and fisherwomen and fisher them, because we're in islands. We've got really productive seas around our islands,
Mm.
and we allowed European countries like Spain and Portugal to fish our waters because that was part of being a member of the European Union. But we're not now, and Keir Starmer now has said that they can carry on fishing for another 12 years.
Mm.
I was hoping Brexit was going to lead to us being a fishing superpower, and we're doing so much money catching our own fish, employing more fishermen, giving out more license, canning fish and selling fish around the world, and sell the fish to the French, the Portuguese, the Spanish, and let them have let's sell it to them.
Mm.
But yet again, one of our British politicians have sold out the fishermen yet again.
I know, and it's such a shame, isn't it? As you say, it was a big part of the discussion when we were trying to when we were leaving the European Union, and within a few months, Sir Keir Starmer has sold us out, hasn't he? And sold the fishermen out, and I dread to think that what this is going to mean for the fishing industry, really. That he,
12 years.
yeah.
I remember seeing interviews with fishermen when we just had the referendum, and they were saying things on TV like, finally, this industry now will survive and will grow.
Mm.
It's worth my son now looking at being a fisherman because there's going to be great opportunities now for my son. Because at the moment, I'm telling my son not to be a fisherman because it's a dying industry. So we've not only we've sold out him, we've sold out the younger generations of people who would have made fantastic fishermen, because not everybody wants to go to university. Not everybody wants to sit behind a desk at a computer to earn their living. There's many men out there, many young boys who actually want to do things with their hands. because that's the way they've been designed to do things with their hands and take risks on the high seas and
Just
bring back.
see, it's just selling out everything that we worked so hard to achieve, and I just don't think that we're getting anything back from this deal. I can't see what we're getting back. He said on Twitter the other day, well, we're going to have shorter queues at the airport, and you might be at the beach a little bit
Hmm.
quicker. Well, this is people's industries and people's livelihoods. It's disgraceful.
It is. I think Keir Starmer at the moment isn't looking for success. Keir Starmer is looking for positive headlines because he could be gone any day now, any week now. So he's had a poor deal with India and sold it as a great deal. Poor deal, trade deal with America, sold it as a great deal. And now he's redoing some deals with Europe and selling it as a fantastic opportunity. It's the headlines he wants because he won't be around much longer. That's all he's doing. Joe, last word from you.
Well, uh, negative times at the minute, but hopefully, hopefully in the future, as I say, we can make use of us leaving, and we can reverse some of this mess that a wonderful Sakir has made for us.
Oh, wouldn't that be great? Let's hope so. Joe, thanks for coming along today, and I hope you come back on in the near future, and we'll discuss more failings of our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. Thank you very much, and thank you for watching The Pulse with me, Nick Buckley.